Hello and welcome to Find Your Freedom, a podcast dedicated to helping you truly find freedom in all aspects of life. Join your hosts and their expert guests as they share practical tips and strategies for finding more freedom in your life. It's time to take control of your life and create the future you want. Let's find your freedom. Here are your hosts, Lenny the Boss and Omid Rad Investor.
Welcome to the show. Today we have Josh Goldstein here, and he's one of my friends that I've actually known for a couple years now, and his story is super inspiring. I want to try to sum it up as best as I can, but I did see him on Instagram. I think he was like at the snow or somewhere, like living his best life, and I think this is a true reflection off of kind of like how he's transitioned his mindset and just like his priorities, but yeah. Going from being a producer to an investor and, really building a portfolio in a really short amount of time. Super, super duper excited. You guys are going to be really, really, you guys definitely got to tune in to really listen to, his story. So Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So maybe like share a little bit just about your story, just like, kind of like, what's what your background is and kind of like where it's led to you to today, I guess.
Sure. So my background, I am a producer in the entertainment industry. I've done all sorts of projects. I've done music videos, I've done some movies, I've done TV. I've landed on commercials as kind of my niche that I like, and I don't know, it just seems to be the best for me. I'm freelance. So basically what that means is I get hired by different companies per project basis. And then when the project is done, I am unemployed again until I get hired. It's never really been a problem. I stay quite busy and maybe sometimes too busy to the fact that it's hard to take vacations because being freelance, if you're taking a vacation, you're not only paying for the vacation, but you're also losing the money of jobs that you're turning down and potential future work, because if it's a campaign or whatever it is. So it's a little bit hard to get past that, to take some time for yourself. Sorry, go ahead, Lenny.
Oh, no. Awesome. Man, keep on going. Keep on going. We loving it. Go ahead.
So in 2015, I basically got to a point where I bought our dream house. We were renovating it. We gutted it down to the studs. I had actually sold my other primary residence, which allowed me to do this. And I lived there for like 10 years. So I had some equity built up. And as we were doing that, we got a bomb dropped on us where I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And so, here I am working freelance, feeling like, well, I could just keep spending as much money as I want because I'm never going to stop working. Like I like what I'm doing and, I'm busy. But this came out of left field, obviously. And the doctors said, you're not going to be able to work for a while. Who knows how long? I was going into debt to finish this house. And that's kind of where I landed. I started treatment. And during that time, I did read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But for the year that I was kind of doing treatment, I did chemotherapy, I did radiation, surgery, more chemotherapy. I couldn't really do much, like I was focusing on healing and being with my family and trying to, I don't know, just survive at that point. But after reading that book, I realized that I needed something different. And even without the cancer diagnosis, I feel like I realized that I needed something different that would change my life and be able to go on vacations more and kind of pick and choose the jobs that I want to do and just kind of live a happier life that way.
Oh, man, totally understand. Hey, listen, first and foremost, I'm happy to hear that you are a cancer survivor, right?
Thank you.
Because that C word is tough, and when you hear it, I have family members where, I have a sister, she's a survivor, and unfortunately we lost a few people to cancer. So it's a serious thing, but, I'm happy to hear that, you landed on some real estate, right? And Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a book that a lot of people say that they read that, got those mechanics rolling, in your head. So I guess with that being said, how long have you been in real estate? And I believe that, you kind of scaled up pretty quick. Is that like 20 properties in 2 years or something like that?
Yeah, about that. So, after it was about a year of treatment. And then when I was clear, I basically jumped back into work to get out of debt and I took every job I possibly could to do that. And then I started learning real estate, and like on my commutes to work, I was listening to podcasts, audiobooks, everything I could. I was just digesting everything. And I was kind of doing that for several years and stuck in analysis paralysis. So my first deal I pulled the trigger on finally was January 2020. I closed on a house in Kansas City, Missouri.
So can we take a step back? So like, I don't want to kind of glaze over like the cancer piece. I think that's a great moment for reflection. So like when my dad was diagnosed with cancer, it was as a moment where we kind of revisited all our priorities. We visit our priorities, our diet, what's important, and walk me through kind of like your thought process around like what exactly like you reprioritized, or kind of like how you revisited kind of like your thought process.
Yeah, I mean, I was just turning 40, and I think like a lot of people, I'll say young adult, but I was getting a little bit older, I guess. I felt invincible because, I was always pretty healthy. And I don't know, like you don't think about things like cancer, and it's out there, and other people that get it, or, like know other people that get it. But that's other people, like it's hard to relate that to you, but it can happen to anyone. And if it's not cancer, it could be some other kind of traumatic experience. And I feel like, the mindset that my wife and I had during this really pulled us through, because when I was diagnosed, I was at the hospital. She was at home with the kids. I called her, told her what the doctors had said, and her response was, okay, let's figure this out. Instead of like crying and freaking out and throwing a fit, like she jumped into action. And that's kind of her personality, is she just jumps into action. So, that's something that I've always done too, but I feel like her positivity is even way above mine. So.
Oh, and you know what? And that's great to definitely 100% have, someone in your corner who's just, like you said, an action, taker. I guess with that and with your relationship, did you guys like build something stronger or different coming out of that situation?
Yeah, I mean, we felt like we went to war together, and we were in the trenches together. And it's funny, like so many people, when I tell them the story, always congratulate me, and they always say, oh my God, I can't believe what you've accomplished and what you've done and whatever. And in my eyes, I almost like, I look at my wife, and it's like, it was way harder on her than me. It's like I had procedures, I had this, that done to me, but I was laying in a bed in a hospital a lot of the time and whatever. And she was like taking care of 2 young kids and trying to support me and research things that I could potentially do on top of the medical treatment and stuff like that. So her hands were really, really full during that time. And she was, everything. It was amazing.
So normally a lot of people go through life as almost transactional. They're either like working their job, or they're trying to earn money. And then before you know it, years pass, and then it takes like a traumatic event for them to kind of reflect or reprioritize. Walk me through like, or maybe what would be your advice to somebody who's maybe not necessarily having to have a traumatic event, but to create some sort of laser focus around how they can kind of improve their life?
Well, I think people get comfortable, and I was there. And when you're comfortable and you're making decent money and you're living nicely, you don't feel like you need to change much. The problem is things can happen unexpectedly. And that's why I want to kind of spread this word out as much as possible. And, I hope to God that most people do not come into a a diagnosis like this, but other things can happen. I mean, it's like economies change, jobs change, companies go in and out of business. I know for my job, you know, we always see a slowdown when there's a recession because marketing dollars are the first ones to go when big companies are looking at their bottom line, you know? But it's like, I think it has to come from within yourself. You know, I think if you're listening to this podcast or other podcasts like this, you're already on somewhat of a journey to get there, obviously. But to focus, just think about your future. If you put the hard work in now, it's going to benefit you later on. And, you know, it's like, I wish I had started this when I was a lot younger. If I was, I'd be in a totally different situation. It would be amazing, but it doesn't matter. Cause like you could start at any time and still build and grow. You know, it really doesn't matter how old you are or when you start, you know, just today's the best time to start, I would say.
Absolutely. Now is always the best time to start. But, you know, you used two words I want to hammer down on: being comfortable and uninspected, right? You know, and I relate to that, you know, because I worked for a company corporate job for over 22 years, right? And, you know, I was getting paid a really decent salary. So I was very comfortable, you know, and I think when it came to real estate, my goals were a little small, but I had one, right? And I was buying one property a year. I really could have purchased more than that, you know, and just like you said, the unexpected thing came. They laid me off, right? Yeah. You know, but the great thing was I had that goal and I was able to have enough property. So when they did lay me off, I didn't have to worry about going back out there to get a job, right? You know, now, when you're getting with your wife and you're healing and you're feeling better, you know, I guess what made you decide on the real estate? I mean, there's so many things out there. Like, what was it about real estate that attracted you? Well,
I mean, ultimately, when I did read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and this was during the treatment where I couldn't focus on many other things, but I felt like an idiot. I gotta say, you know, it's like I had grown up always loving houses and real estate and areas and even looking at values and design, you know, like we would fall into watching HGTV and like that sort of stuff. But it's like even design past that, like I loved looking at cool architectural stuff, but for whatever reason, I never realized that I could make money off of it. I knew other people could, but for me personally, I don't know, like it just so unobtainable that it wasn't in my realm. So I feel like when I read that book, I was like, I can't believe I didn't realize this before. I'm such an idiot. So that was like really the brick to the head that, you know, once I recovered, I knew that's the path I had to follow.
So I know you mentioned earlier that you went into the bigger pockets, you came across bigger pockets and you started getting analysis paralysis. So somebody getting started, because I think that's such a common thing. How do you overcome that, or how do you pull the trigger, and what are the learning lessons from like the first deal? Because I know like your first deal versus like your current deal is very different. So maybe like walk us through the thought process and then like how you kind of even transition between like a different strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty strict with myself when I was learning, and it's like I got these numbers and I thought I was being good, and I guess I kind of was. I was sticking to my numbers, and it's like if I even made offers on places and would try to say like, oh, this thing's wrong, I need a $1,000 credit or whatever, or $1,000 off, and they would say no, and I'd back away from the deal. You know, and it's like now I look back at that and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I walked away from that deal over $1,000 or whatever it is. Because it's like if it doesn't work over $1,000, like it's probably not a good deal to start with. But when I finally did pull the trigger, it was because I listened to a podcast on Bigger Pockets. I believe the guest's name was Whitney Hutton, and she was based in Kansas City, Missouri, and she talked all about turnkey rentals. And I had always shied away from that because I like to get my hands dirty. I like to renovate. I like to design myself. I wanted all the equity. I wanted everything. But as I was trying to do this during analysis paralysis, it was tough. And as a first time investor, it's a little scary, and you're trying to put your trust in people that you haven't met in person. You've met over the internet. You've maybe gotten referrals. You go to meetups and get those referrals, but still there's a part of you saying, is this real? Does this actually work? I don't know. And so when I heard her podcast, I reached out to her, and she gave me a recommendation for property management companies that did turnkey. They started sending me some deals, and I did wind up finally closing on my first deal in January 2020. And it was turnkey. It was $70,000. So I felt like the barrier to entry was not very big. And it already had renter in for $800 a month. And I don't know, I just felt like it was a bit of a no-brainer, and what I realized is it helped me figure out the process of just doing a deal and analyzing it and seeing that it actually works. And because I was analyzing a ton of deals before that, but until you see the money start coming back in, you don't know it works in reality versus theoretically, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, that makes sense. It's so funny because I love to hear that, because you say to yourself, I am not alone. I am not the only person that thought that way. Like when I purchased my first property, and I had to, kind of sort of convince my wife, because she had wanted nothing to do when it came to real estate. But you start to really see that, wow, I went out here, I got this property, and I got a tenant, and bada boom, bada bang, is actually working out, and you build that confidence. So one of the things that I do want to ask is, your spouse, right? I think I heard you mention that your spouse, is involved with helping out with design and doing some cool things. So I guess, how easy, was it to get her on board when it came to real estate? Because, a lot of people happen to struggle with that, on how they get their spouse. It can be their husband, it can be, their wife. So if you can give us just a little bit of insight on, your story behind that, and how, your wife just got on board with helping out with the business.
So when I first started that first turnkey deal, the $70,000 Kansas City long-term rental, super simple, we talked about it. I told her about it. She knew that there's value in real estate. She, to be honest, wasn't super interested in it, and basically said, look, I know you've been learning a ton about this, because I had been learning for several years at this point. So she's like, I trust you. Do it. Go for it. But she kind of like didn't want to have anything to do with it. She wasn't interested. It wasn't like a, I don't know. It wasn't nefarious or anything like that. But it wasn't until we closed on our first short-term rental, and when I started talking to her about that, and it was these 2 cabins in Smoky Mountains on 2 acres of land. And even before we selected what that was, like, she was more interested in looking through the MLS with me, through the Zillow. And like, she would be like, how about this one? This one looks good. We could do something with this. Or, like, you could see the spark in her eye at that point, because not only is it something a little bit way different than our normal life, like living in LA. But it's something that we could use at a certain point too. And so as we were buying these cabins and, looking at design and figuring out how to fix it up and what kind of experiences we could create by doing these, we would go as a family to check out these cabins. And so the first time, I went to the Smoky Mountains was after our offer was accepted. We went there during inspection, and it was me, my wife, and the 2 kids. And we did like this whirlwind weekend in Smoky Mountains. And I'd never been there before. I didn't know much about it, and we didn't know what to expect, but it was such a fun adventure. And I feel like we kept that up in every market that we've been to, and every cabin that we start to design, we kind of make it this experience. I mean, we're actually going on Wednesday, and we're pulling the kids out of school for several days, and we're checking up on the renovations that we have going on there right now. But it's like, when we're doing that, we're making it fun for the kids, and they get to see what we're doing in the real estate investing period too, because I feel like it's getting drilled into their brains at this point. And, you know, there's one point where at school, I guess a teacher asked my older son what they would do if someone gave them $1 million. And so I don't know what the other kids answered, but my son said, I would buy a house and rent it out. And so I was like, hey, I did something right. And like, I haven't been drilling it in too much, but like, you know, I'm like, just the concept of that. And cause I do talk about it. I do want to share, cause no matter what they want to do as their career, I will support, but I want them to do this as well, because they need this backup plan. They need some sort of security so that they have the freedom to go off and do whatever they want.
Listen, you know, first things first, like that's super awesome. You see, I get super excited to hear stuff like that. You know, I hear you going to the Smokies and you pulling your kid out of school this week. Hey, hopefully we can link up. I will be down here.
Oh, you will?
Yes,
oh, you should.
doing the same exact
So will
thing.
I.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, Omid as well. So,
oh, cool.
So
Yeah. I'm leaving Wednesday and staying through Monday. So let's link up for sure.
Wednesday through Saturday.
Friday.
So
Awesome.
I'm getting there Friday and staying till Tuesday, I believe. But you know, the thing with the family, you know, I love that. You know, I love that, you know, you taking your wife and the kids and they're learning this process.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I said, you know, hey, there's things I want to give back to my kids, right? You know, so it was something that I needed to do. And one part of it was education. I said, because hey, I can give you these properties. I can leave a whole bunch of money. You can sell all the properties, right? You can blow through all the money. But the one thing that, you know, you can never be stripped away from is the education, you know, of learning how to read a P&L, you know, all the things that negotiating, dealing with accountants, dealing with attorneys. And I bring my son with me through all those processes, you know, because those are the things that you're going to need to know how to do. So it's very encouraging to hear that that's what you're doing with your family. So I see that you got a mixture of some short-term rentals and some long-term rentals, I believe. You know, so I guess tell us a little more about the journey there, because I think we mentioned it earlier. You know, I guess you got 20 doors in less than 2 years, and that's insightful to people. You know, and also it's like, wow, how did you do it? You know what I mean? So if you can just, I guess, stay there for a little bit and give us a little insight there, that'd be cool.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I wanted to try to balance my portfolio between long-term and short-term as much as possible, because when I did, my second deal was those 2 cabins in the Smokies. And when I did start to see the money roll in, it was even way more exciting than the turnkey. But I knew that the long-term rentals were way more passive and to some degree more stable, you know, especially as you get more and more of them. So realistically, like as I was growing, we did take the BRRRR method after our first turnkey. We actually, the first turnkey did turn out to be an accidental BRRRR, which, you know, I'll say I was a bit lucky on this deal. But when they sent me the deal, it was $70,000. I looked at the comps and they said that the comps were 90, and it was a holiday special. They called it. It was December 2019. Right. And so I was like, okay, I looked at the comps. I kind of agreed that it looked like it was around 90. And 2 weeks into it, my, lender backed out because the underwriter didn't like that a property management company was selling it direct and that they were getting property management fees and stuff like that. And so there was part of me that was like, oh crap, what do I do? And I did have enough money at that point to pay in cash. And so it was $70,000. I did it. And it kind of happened to be the best thing ever, because if I had only put 20% down, $14,000 down, I probably wouldn't have looked to cash out refi, you know, because it was a turnkey deal. Why would I do that? But $70,000 in, I wanted that back, and so I could use it again. A month later, without doing any renovations or anything, I got an appraisal for, I think it was like 116. And so I was able to pull out $74,000. So it was my initial capital plus closing costs. And oh man, when that hit my bank, it was like the biggest rush ever, because I was like, it really proves that it works. So I was like, well, can I do this for the short-term market as well? And so after the first 2 cabins that I had bought, which were somewhat turnkey, I started looking at cabins that we could renovate and that we could design and kind of improve on our own. And so the other thing that we did like to look for is properties that had multiple cabins on it. So the next Smoky Mountains cabin that we bought had a 4-3. It was 4 acres of land. It had a 1-bedroom cabin that had a long-term tenant. It had a giant garage that had a kitchen and a bathroom and, electrical, plumbing, et cetera. And it had 2 mobile homes that were paying lot rent. And so, and the main cabin was a residence, not a short-term rental before. So to get that main residence up to short-term standards, we had to do a lot of work. We designed a bunch of it. We redid the kitchen. We added more, tongue and groove and stuff like that to make it a little more cabiny versus residence. And we improved it a ton. And once that went up and running, we pulled money out, and now we're renovating the 1-bedroom as part of the renovations that we're doing in the Smokies. And eventually we're going to renovate the garage. We're going to do something for where the mobile homes are. That thing's going to be a beast. And then at the same time, we were renovating an A-frame cabin in Idlewild, which is a little bit more selfish because it was a couple hours from LA, something that we could use even more. And it was a gorgeous A-frame that we figured out really nice ways to improve it and make that thing shine. And so we just kept doing that over and over again. And a lot of the properties, we would jump up. Like how I got to 20 at the end was I bought these 5 cabins on 7 acres of land. And so it's like 5 at once really jumps you up in terms of your doors and your cash flow. Those are the other 5 that I'm renovating right now. So they're not cash flowing yet. They're draining money, but I see what the future holds with them because they're going to be amazing, and we're doing them really nicely. So that's kind of how I grew, is just kind of like finding value add, looking where people aren't necessarily looking, and growing from there and pulling my money out and just repeating.
So I love that because when you think about people getting started, they just kind of try to replicate what's popular in the markets. Oh, we should just buy here. They'll buy the one. But I like your story, how it transitions. It's, you buy the turnkey, you get a little bit comfortable with the kind of the process. You learn the burr kind of, pulling out some money out of like that particular property. Then you do the STR, and then you realize, hey, I got to look for more unique properties and where I can add value. And that's where a lot of like the wealth is built, is with kind of, finding these sort of properties. And then it allows you to scale. So then it allows you to scale where you're now in a position where you're looking for bigger properties. At some point, I guess, my question is, like, you start seeing kind of the lifestyle change. So it's, you're bringing your family now over to like all these projects. And so they're interested, and you're creating this legacy around, like mindset around like your family and your kids, and kind of like to think bigger. So at what point do you even decide you're going to not do the entertainment side and just be like a full-time real estate investor? And what does that look like? And just so that you have the right balance, because it seems like you're always laser focused at what you do. And then how do you kind of transition that to like the next thing?
Well, being freelance, it's a little bit easier for me because I'm not walking into a boss and saying, I quit, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
It's more like, and I've already started to do this, where jobs will come up and I really have to think, like, do I want to do this job, or do I want to hang out with the family, or focus more on real estate, or go on a trip, or whatever. And I've definitely started to do that more than I ever have in the past, like I would worry about booking a trip, because if a job books, like, it stresses me out. And a lot of times I'd have to back out of the trip, and, my family would go on their own, and I would go back to work, or, I don't know, or we just cancel it. So I feel like, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
I think it's more like, I guess, you've done, all these things, and, you have the laser focus, and you're shifting sort of like your priorities, and you're kind of passing that on to your kids. And at what point do you decide, hey, like, I'm in a place where I'm continuing to build a portfolio, and I'm maybe not necessarily going to do as much on the entertainment side.
Right. I think that, like, as of now, I'm not planning on stopping that, at least completely. And because I'm freelance, I like the fact that I could pick and choose the projects that I really like. And it's like, I've grown a bit of a family in the production world and the people that I work with. And so, it's almost social at a certain point for me, and it's like, it's fun being able to go and create these commercials, and, a lot of them are comedy or, visually cool, or lots of special effects, and like sometimes really nice trips that I get to go on and explore new countries that I never would have gone to before. So, I think, I will turn down a lot of the jobs that don't have those elements. But I don't think that I'll fully stop it. And what I'm trying to build on the real estate side is something similar to that I have on the production side, because I have an amazing production team, and it took me a while to grow that. It took me a while to get the right production manager and coordinator and everyone around me. And I'm trying to do that with real estate, so that, like, as active as short-term rentals are, I'm trying to build a team so that it's not as active for me. And I know I'll get there eventually, but it takes time to find those right people, I think.
Gosh, I really love your story, man. I'm over here just like giggly all inside, because it makes me feel good, because you're building a life that everybody wants, right? Let me rebirth what I heard you say here, right? You're sitting here saying, look, I'm a freelancer. And because I got some real estate over here, I'm going to pick and choose what's going to bring much more value to my life. I'm going to take trips across the world to places that I never thought I would even go, because I choose to, not because I have to. And you bank that all because, you sit here and you build yourself up a nice portfolio, on that side. Dude, I'm telling you, Josh, we definitely 100%, got the hook up. Look, I'm sure we could talk on and on and on and on about this real estate. And we 100% want you back on the show once you get those 5 cabins rehabbed, right? But until then, let us know, what do Find Your Freedom mean to you?
I think it's about experiences. I mean, finding a way for me and my family to go and create these memories for my kids and these experiences and having fun. Like I said, I'm going to the Smokies with them, and it's like we pick and choose like fun little tidbits that I know the kids are going to, like, their minds are going to explode because they have so much fun. But during that time, they are learning because they are seeing what we're doing, and they're following along and stuff like that. So I think freedom to me is really being able to show that to my family and have these experiences with my family.
I love that. I think that's like so important when you think about, even Lenny mentioned it before, like part of your legacy is like creating experiences for people and things that they remember and things they remember about dad and what you guys did together. And I think just building something where it's just like a joint thing where everybody's kind of participating. I think that's amazing. So I guess like even for us, like for our listeners, I know we're going to connect because we're going to see you this week, I guess, in the Smokies.
Yeah, so, I'm so excited about that.
That's so funny, right? So it's like, but for the listeners, like where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram. My handle is Bunkhouse Worldwide. I try to stay consistent and post some tidbits about what I'm doing with real estate and give some, advice here and there. Definitely getting better at it. But that'd be the best place. You can direct message me there if you have any questions. And I'd love to chat real estate. So I'm always kind of open to that.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right. Remember, we don't have any guests here. All right. Everybody here on our show at Find Your Freedom is a friend, and Josh is just that. So Josh, one of the things that we do at the end of our show, we do this big boom session because I'm Mr. Boom guy, right? So what's going to happen here is I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3. Then all three of us in a uniform manner are going to scream boom as loud as we can. All right. Ready to go?
Got it.
All right. Let's do it. All right. 1, 2, 3.
Boom!
Awesome. Once again, man, listen, we do not have guests here on this show. We have friends, and Josh is just that. His story is super inspiring. This is an episode you 100% do not want to miss. And if you want us to bring you more and more episodes like this, then we need a little help from you. We need you to, one, subscribe. We need you to take this episode and email it to your friends, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your cousin, your sister, your brother, and any and everybody that you know. All right. And also drop some comments down there. Omid and myself, we are in the comments and we will answer any and all questions. Right. Until the next episode, we see you soon. Peace.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Find Your Freedom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're at it, please help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review and sharing the podcast with friends, family, and colleagues. Until next time, get out there and find your freedom.